I used to think my life was quiet, predictable. A small apartment, a modest job at a local IT firm, the same walk to work every morning with coffee in hand and headphones blocking out the world. Nothing special. No real friends, no enemies, no secrets. Or so I believed. It started with a message. I remember the vibration on my phone at 2:37 a.m., a time when no one decent ever texts you. The screen glowed against the darkness of my room, a number I didn't recognize. The message said, "You left something unfinished. Check your email." I frowned, half asleep. Probably spam. But then I noticed the name on the email that arrived a few seconds later. Elena Markova. That name hit me like a stone. Elena had been my colleague 5 years ago. She'd vanished after an internal audit revealed missing funds. The company quietly buried the case. She was never found. And now, somehow, she was writing to me. I opened the email. There was no text, just a link to a private cloud folder. Against every instinct, I clicked. Inside was a single video file named confession.mp4. The video opened with static, then the flicker of a small room. Elena sat in front of the camera, pale, thinner than I remembered, her eyes darting to the corners of the screen like she was being watched. "Alex, if you're seeing this, it means they found me. Don't trust anyone from the company, especially not Harris. The feed cut off. That was it. 23 seconds. I sat there staring at the screen, my pulse hammering. I hadn't thought about her in years, but now it felt like she'd just spoken to me from the grave. The next morning, I couldn't focus at work. Harris, my manager, greeted me as usual. Same fake smile, same confident tone. But I couldn't unhear her voice. "Don't trust him." By lunch, I noticed a black car parked outside the office. It had tinted windows and hadn't moved all day. Maybe it was coincidence. Maybe not. When I got home that night, someone had already been there. I could tell, the way the rug near the door was slightly misaligned, the faint smell of cologne that wasn't mine. My laptop's power light was blinking, though I'd shut it off that morning. That's when I realized this wasn't a prank. Someone was watching me. I went to my kitchen, grabbed the cheap burner phone I'd bought years ago for travel, and powered it up. No SIM card, no GPS. If Elena's message was real, I needed to disappear, quietly. But before I could pack, another message arrived on my main phone. No sender, just one line. "You shouldn't have opened the video." My hands shook as I stared at the text. It felt like the walls were closing in, every shadow a threat, every sound amplified. I unplugged my router, turned off my phone, and sat in silence for what felt like hours. Then came a knock at the door. 3 slow taps. Not a neighbor, not delivery, deliberate, calculated. I didn't move. The knocking came again, louder this time. And then a voice, male, calm, measured. "Mr. Carter, we need to ask you a few questions about a former employee, Elena Markova." I froze. They had found me.
I didn't answer the door. I just stood there, holding my breath, listening. The man outside repeated my name again, politely, as if he were offering help. Then came another voice, quieter, lower, a second person. They spoke to each other in muffled tones. And then silence. For a moment, I thought they'd gone. I crept closer to the peephole, barely daring to look. The hallway light flickered, casting distorted shadows on the wall. I saw them. 2 men in black coats, one tall and broad-shouldered, the other smaller, with a tablet in hand. No uniforms, no badges. Just that look, controlled, professional, dangerous. The tall one turned his head slightly, as if he knew I was watching. My stomach twisted. Then, finally, they walked away. I stayed still for at least 10 minutes before moving. My instincts screamed that this wasn't over. These men weren't police. They didn't knock like police. They waited, listened, tested. Whoever they were, they knew something. Maybe Elena had mentioned my name before she vanished. I grabbed my laptop bag, stuffed in a few clothes, cash, and my backup drive. I was out the door within minutes, heading down the emergency stairs instead of the elevator. My building was old, the kind of place where no one cared who came or went. But when I reached the back exit, I saw the same black car from work, parked across the street. Someone was inside. I forced myself to keep walking, pretending not to notice. I took the long way around the block, cutting through an alley that reeked of garbage and rain. My pulse wouldn't slow down. By the time I reached the train station, I'd decided I was leaving the city. While waiting for a ticket, I opened my laptop and searched for Elena. Nothing new, just old articles, blurry photos, conspiracy forums guessing she'd fled the country. But then I checked my email again. The message from her was gone. Completely erased, not even in the trash folder. My throat went dry. Someone had access to my inbox, and they wanted the video gone. As the night train pulled in, I felt eyes on me. Maybe it was just paranoia. Maybe not. I boarded, took a seat by the window, and watched the city shrink behind me. The rhythmic clatter of wheels should have been comforting. Instead, it sounded like a countdown. Around midnight, the train stopped unexpectedly between stations. Lights flickered. People murmured, confused. I looked out the window and saw headlights, a car parked by the tracks. My heart dropped. A silhouette stepped out, backlit by the beams. Tall, broad-shouldered, the same build as the man from my apartment. "Due to a technical issue, please remain seated," announced the conductor over the intercom. But I wasn't staying. I grabbed my bag and moved toward the rear of the train. I could feel adrenaline flooding my veins. If they were after me, they wouldn't hesitate to come on board. I opened the emergency door, jumped down onto the gravel, and ran into the darkness. Cold air cut my face. The ground was uneven. I ran until the train's lights were nothing but distant sparks. Then I stopped, panting, leaning against a tree. The silence out here was absolute. No traffic, no voices, just the faint buzz of power lines somewhere far away. I pulled out my burner phone and turned it on. No messages, no signal. Good. Safe. For now. Then, as I stood catching my breath, I heard something behind me. A twig snapping. I spun around. Nothing but darkness. Another sound, closer this time, deliberate. I tightened my grip on the flashlight and switched it on. And there she was, Elena, standing 10 feet away, drenched, trembling, her eyes wide. "Alex," she whispered, "you weren't supposed to open it." My flashlight shook in my hand. I didn't know if she was real or if my mind had finally broken. She looked exactly like in the video. The same fear, the same exhaustion. "Alex," I managed to say, "you're alive." She stepped forward, glancing nervously at the woods behind her. "They're coming," she said. "We don't have much time." "Who? Harris? The company?" "No," she said, her voice cracking. "Something worse." Before I could respond, distant headlights cut through the trees. She grabbed my hand. "Run."
We ran. Branches whipped against my face, the forest floor slick with mud and fallen leaves. Elena's grip was like steel, pulling me deeper into the darkness. Behind us, the roar of an engine cut through the night. Whoever they were, they had found us again, faster than I thought possible. We didn't speak. We couldn't. Every breath was a ragged whisper of panic. My lungs burned, my vision blurred, but Elena kept moving as if she'd been running her entire life. The headlights behind us flashed through the trees, a pulse of white light sweeping over the trunks like search beams. Finally, she pulled me down into a narrow ditch, half covered with brush and wet soil. We lay there, pressed against the ground, while two figures with flashlights passed just meters away. Their beams sliced through the air, pausing, searching. One of them spoke. "Are you sure it was this way?" Thermal picked up two signatures. They're close. Thermal. They had equipment. Not amateurs, not random pursuers. This was organized. I held my breath until their voices faded. When I turned my head toward Elena, she was staring at me, eyes wide, terrified but determined. "We can't stay here. They'll sweep back." "Who are they?" I hissed. "What do they want with you? With me?" She hesitated, then said, "You shouldn't have opened that file. It's what they wanted, to know who still had access." "I don't understand." "You will," she said quietly, crawling out of the ditch, "but not here." We moved through the forest for hours, guided only by the faint orange glow of distant lights. Finally, we reached an abandoned service cabin, a crumbling wooden shack half swallowed by ivy and time. Inside, it smelled of rot and rain, but it was dry, hidden. She dropped her small backpack on the floor and locked the door behind us. Under the faint beam of my flashlight, I saw how exhausted she was. Her hand trembled as she unzipped the pack and pulled out a worn hard drive. "Everything started with this. The video was only bait. The real data's here." "What kind of data?" She looked up. "Proof that Harris and two board members were laundering money through shell companies tied to defense contracts. But that's not all. The files also show something else. Names, locations, test sites. Things we were never supposed to see." "Test sites," I repeated. "What kind of tests?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she stared at the drive like it was a curse. "Human ones." The word hit me like ice water. She went on, her voice trembling. "They were using corporate funds to hide research, off-the-record experiments, behavioral manipulation, neural mapping, programs designed to control decision-making through data and exposure. I stumbled on it by accident, and once I knew, they came for me." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You're telling me they're using people as subjects," she finished. "Yes. And the worst part, they don't need to abduct anyone. Everyone's volunteering. Through apps, ads, surveys. They're already inside people's heads, Alex." I sat down heavily on a crate, trying to process it. My company had always seemed sterile, boring, endless data reports and cloud infrastructure. But if what she said was true, that same infrastructure was being used for something monstrous. "You should have destroyed it," I said. "I tried, but once it's in the system, you can't erase it. The files replicate, move through encrypted servers. The only way to shut it down is from inside their network. I need your access key." "My key?" "You were the last admin they didn't revoke. You still have root privileges, deep system control. I can't get in without you." I shook my head. "Elena, they're hunting us. You want me to break into the company from out here?" She met my eyes. "It's the only way we survive." Before I could respond, there was a sound outside, faint at first, then louder, the unmistakable crunch of footsteps on wet gravel. We both froze. Elena killed the flashlight. Silence. Then the slow metallic creak of the cabin's front door turning. My pulse pounded in my throat. I glanced at the small window behind us, too narrow to climb through. There was nowhere to run. Elena reached into her pack, pulled out a pistol, small, old, but steady in her hands. I'd never seen her like this before. The door shuddered once, then again, and then a voice. "Mr. Markova, you've made this very difficult." It was Harris. the calm, measured voice I'd heard 100 times in meetings. I felt my stomach twist. He wasn't alone. I could hear at least 2 others moving outside. Elena mouthed, "Back door." I nodded, and we moved silently toward the rear exit. The wood groaned under our feet. Harris kept talking, voice eerily composed. "We just want the drive, Elena. Give it to us, and this ends tonight." She looked at me, then at the drive still in her hand. For a moment I thought she might actually surrender. But then she slipped it into my jacket pocket and whispered, "If I don't make it out, you finish it." Before I could answer, the front door splintered inward, and everything exploded into chaos. The door burst open in a storm of splinters and shouts. Flashlights slashed through the darkness like blades. Elena fired first, one sharp crack that made my ears ring. The nearest figure stumbled back with a grunt, crashing into the doorframe. "Run!" she screamed. I didn't argue. I bolted toward the back exit, the sound of gunfire echoing behind me. The wooden wall beside my head exploded as a bullet ripped through it. I ducked and kicked open the rear door, stumbling into the cold night. "Elena!" I shouted. No answer. Another shot, another yell. Then, silence. I hesitated for half a heartbeat, then turned back. Through the smoke and flashlight beams, I saw her crouched behind a crate, firing again. Harris stood in the doorway, calm as ever, reloading his weapon like he'd done it 100 times. "Elena, we can't win this!" I shouted. "Go!" she cried. "Get to the road! I'll find you!" I didn't want to leave her, but I knew if I stayed, we'd both die here. I turned and ran. Branches whipped my face again, the ground uneven and slick. Behind me, the cabin's windows glowed orange. Someone had thrown a flare inside. Within seconds, the whole place was ablaze. The heat chased me through the trees as I stumbled down a hill and fell hard onto wet grass. When I looked back, the cabin was a torch against the black sky. "Elena!" I yelled again, but only the crackle of fire answered. I lay there for a long moment, chest heaving, watching the flames devour everything. Then, through the smoke, a shadow moved, a figure running the opposite direction from the fire. A woman, limping. I wasn't sure if it was her or my imagination. Either way, I had to move. I followed the dirt trail until I reached a narrow road. No cars, no lights, just the faint hum of power lines and the distant bark of dogs. My hands shook as I pulled out the burner phone. Still no signal. I needed help, or at least someone who could explain what was happening. That's when I remembered Daniel Reyes, an old coworker from the data team. He'd quit months before Elena disappeared. Back then, he'd told me quietly, "You'll see things you can't unsee here, Alex." I hadn't understood what he meant. Now I did. If anyone knew how deep this went, it was him. By sunrise, I'd walked nearly 10 kilometers along the empty road before I reached a gas station. I used the payphone to call an old contact number I still had memorized. 3 rings. Then a voice, wary, tired. "Who is this?" "It's Alex Carter." A pause. "You shouldn't be calling me." "I found Elena." The line went silent for a long second. Then, "Where are you?" By noon, we met at a rest stop off the highway. He looked older, with dark circles under his eyes and a beard that hadn't been trimmed in weeks. He scanned the parking lot before sitting across from me. "Jesus, Alex, you look like hell." "I found her," I said. "Elena, she has a drive, says it's proof of everything." He shook his head slowly. "Then you're both already dead, you just don't know it yet." I told him everything, the messages, the video, the attack at the cabin. He listened in silence, tapping his fingers on the table. When I finished, he said, "What she found was real. I saw pieces of it before I left. They called it Project Voss, Behavioral Data Experiments. They weren't just collecting habits or purchases, they were mapping neural responses, testing how far they could push human decision-making through stimuli." Stimuli? Content, media, ads, Emotional triggers. They can predict reactions with 98% accuracy. And the next step was control, shaping those reactions before they even happen. I felt sick. And Harris? He runs the cover division. The money flows through his branch, but the real command comes from higher, people you'll never meet. He glanced around nervously. You still have the drive? I do. Then listen to me carefully. Don't upload it. Don't connect it to the internet. They've got scrapers running 24/7. The moment it goes online, they'll find you. I frowned. Then what am I supposed to do with it? Find someone who can break it offline. Air-gapped system, full isolation. You'll need an access key, probably yours. Once it's open, you'll see names, real names. He leaned in closer. If Elena's alive, tell her to run and never stop. Before I could respond, the payphone at the corner of the rest stop started ringing. We both froze. No one was near it, just that shrill, endless ring cutting through the quiet. Daniel stood up slowly. They're tracing us, he whispered. Go, now. I grabbed my bag and sprinted toward the trees behind the lot. The phone kept ringing, louder, faster, almost frantic. I didn't look back until I was halfway down the hill. When I did, Daniel was gone. His car door hung open, the payphone was silent, and a black SUV had pulled into the lot.
I didn't stop running until the sun was gone. The forest stretched endlessly, the silence pressing on my skull like a physical weight. I had the drive in my pocket, its metal casing warm from my grip, as if it had a pulse of its own. Somewhere behind me, an engine roared faintly. The SUV, hunting through the night. I needed to vanish again. But I also needed to know what was inside that drive. By midnight, I found an abandoned maintenance shack near a power substation, half collapsed, humming faintly with electricity. I pried open the rusted door and slipped inside. A single flickering bulb hung from the ceiling, casting a sickly yellow glow. Dust, wires, silence. I laid out my laptop, connected the drive, and held my breath. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a folder appeared, /vos/root/archive. Dozens of encrypted files, each labeled with dates and strings of numbers. I tried my old access key. It worked. The screen flickered. Lines of text scrolled by, followed by documents, names, locations. But then, a video file auto-launched. Harris_interview.mp4. The camera showed Harris sitting at a desk, speaking calmly to someone off-screen. The neural exposure sequence works best on subjects under stress. Fear amplifies response prediction by 40%. The next phase will involve live environments. The voice behind the camera asked, "And what about consent?" Harris smiled faintly. "They gave it when they clicked agree." My stomach twisted. Hundreds of files opened themselves like a floodgate, footage of controlled experiments, simulations, subjects reacting to emotional triggers on screens, people crying, shouting, breaking down. Each file stamped with our company's logo. And then another clip appeared. Test_subject_017_A.Carter.mp4. For a second, I didn't understand. Then I saw myself on screen, sitting in a small white room, hooked up to sensors, staring at a monitor. My own voice, confused, saying, "What is this for?" The recording date was from 3 years ago. I froze. My mind screamed for an explanation. I didn't remember any of it. But there I was, a subject, not an employee. Elena had tried to tell me, "You left something unfinished." I hadn't been helping with the project. I'd been part of it. Before I could process further, the laptop screen flickered again. A new window opened. A live connection request. No internet connection, yet the signal was there. Then Harris's face appeared. "Alex, you weren't supposed to see that." I backed away, heart pounding. How are you doing this?" "Project Voss never left you. We built it into the environment. Every device, every data packet. You didn't think you could escape the network, did you? I slammed the laptop shut. The bulb above me burst with a pop, plunging the shack into darkness. My breathing came fast and shallow. Then footsteps outside, crunching gravel, getting closer. "Elena," I whispered hoarsely, "if you're out there." A hand grabbed my shoulder. I spun around, ready to strike. But it was her, soaked, bleeding, but alive. "They found me," she gasped. "We have to finish it, now." She pulled a small drive from her jacket, identical to mine. Two halves of the same data. Yours has the names, mine has the kill switch. We connected them both into the laptop. Sparks of code filled the screen, red warnings flashing. Harris's voice echoed through the speakers. "You can't stop this, Elena. It's already everywhere." She ignored him, typing furiously. The shack's power hummed, lights outside flickering. My laptop's fan screamed. I saw the final line of code appear on the screen. "Executing full wipe, VOS system override." Once I hit enter, everything they built dies, including the links still inside us. "What do you mean inside us?" She looked at me, tears glinting in the dim light. "We were both part of it. They used our neural data to model control patterns. You, me, we're walking test subjects. When this system dies, so do the connections that keep us alive." I shook my head. "There has to be another way." "There isn't," she said softly. "They'll rebuild it unless we end it completely." Harris's voice grew louder, almost desperate. "Think about what you're doing, Elena. The data is consciousness now. It's you. Erase it, and you erase yourselves." Elena took a shaky breath. "Then let's make sure they can't use us again." She hit enter. The screen went white. The power surged. The hum of the substation rose into a deafening roar. And then, silence. When I woke up, dawn had broken. The shack was gone, burned to the ground. My laptop lay shattered beside me, its circuits fused. The drives were melted metal. Elena was gone. No body, no trace, just a scorch mark where she'd been sitting. In the distance, black smoke rose from the city. Maybe coincidence, maybe consequence. I stood there for a long time, numb, staring at the horizon. Then my phone buzzed. No number, no signal, just a single message on the blank screen. VOS reboot scheduled. System integrity, 12%. Welcome back, subject 017. The screen went dark, and I finally understood. You can't kill a network that's already inside your mind.